Businesses, well-run, ethical businesses that make a difference, do more than bring monetary value to society. They make a difference.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. My name is Nicole, and I am joined by Kirby James. Hi, Kirby.
Hi there.
So in today's episode, we are actually going to be talking about something that we get a lot of questions around, and that is the ecosystem around building a really high-performance business culture, how you're personally resilient, how that ties in, and why your culture matters. And Kirby, I know that you've been giving a lot of CEO presentations as of late. You've had at least 3 or 4 this month alone.
Yep.
And you get a lot of questions about this at the end of the talk in the back of the room where people are a little bit rushed, but they want to know more. So we figured this would be a great opportunity to cover more in depth some of the information that surrounds the ecosystem, why you should care, why it matters, what happens when you don't. So let's dive into that today.
Absolutely. And the why it matters, I think, is that's where I want to start. I mean, we can talk about, any business model we want. But you and I had a shared experience. We were working for this company. It's now gone. It was a darling of the Canadian stock market called MDS.
Yeah.
And it was a great, great company. And what made it so great was people loved working there. Like, the culture was fabulous. The founders still work there. The values were really trying to be alive, but things started to get a bit wobbly, and it's the consequence.
Yeah.
When it was going well, I remember when I joined, like, I just felt like I'd come up to some pinnacle level in my career. Felt I had finally landed at this awesome place. And we were all over the world, and you travel and you had this feeling of, wow, I'm part of something special.
Yeah.
Fast forward less than 10 years, and it's sniping and it's nasty, and they're selling off divisions for a fraction of what they paid for them. And today there's only one remnant left. It's changed its name, or there's a couple of remnants left, but they've been bought up by other companies, and it's gone.
Yeah.
And the worst part of it is the shareholders lost money. The employees lost a place that they love to work, and it all went sideways. And it went sideways for a bunch of reasons. When I'm in these CEO forums and we talk about this model you and I are going to explore, the question on their mind is basically, okay, I see that happening. How do I know it's not starting to happen in my business? Like, how can I ever get a handle on this? And that's really where they get excited.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason why I'm very passionate about getting organizations to sort of wake up and clue into this fact, and I don't know, maybe this is part of your driver as well, but having been a part of an organization where you literally have found your people. We've talked about this in another episode. The culture is so great. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's working towards the same goals. You know what you're doing and why you're doing it. I mean, to this day, I worked for 2 different divisions for the organization. One for a large amount of time because my background was in the lab. I worked for the diagnostic side. Then I moved over to the pharma side. There are people to this day that I still keep in contact with.
Yeah.
There's a group in Toronto that still gets together every year. And our division was shut down over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think part of the driver and why this is so important is because we were a part of something incredible. And because of a few bad decisions, poor choices, maybe sitting back on laurels a little bit, some egos got involved, everything literally disappeared. And personally, I've had companies shut down before where everyone's been let go because they literally have closed the doors. This is the only position in my entire career where I actually cried not because I was losing my job and everything was closing, but because I was losing that culture, that community, and that team.
And
It's devastating for everybody.
well, I think there's even a step that goes beyond that, and it talks about the potential of business in society.
Absolutely.
Businesses, well-run, ethical businesses that make a difference, do more than bring monetary value to society.
Mm-hmm.
They make a difference. They can become almost like the fabric of society. And given the degree of politicization we're seeing at all levels of government and beyond, it's there's still political places, but they're less so.
Yeah.
And I believe business is a real powerful force socially in the world. And when they can perform really well and they can last over time,
Mm-hmm.
it really, really, really does what we experienced. Was this is like there was a community. This was more than work.
Yep.
It became a community.
Absolutely. So I think it's really important that and I will put up the graphic for everyone so they can see the ecosystem that we actually talk about, so we can dive into it. But I think it's important that we cover each of the elements.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, when I take a look at the ecosystem that we put together here, for me, the roadmap, the template upon which this thriving, healthy business is built is the organization I was a part of before everything went sideways, right?
And you know what? We can talk as we go through this model. We can both bring in how we experienced, the evidence that it was starting to go a little bit sideways.
Absolutely.
So let me bring a little bit of background. So the graphic you're going to see here, which looks very simplistic. Nicole, you and I do a lot of research. Like we don't just, pull stuff, out of our back pocket and say, hey, here's a great idea. We read immensely. I mean, my folder of bookmarks just on the topic we're about to discuss, I think I have over 300 bookmarks, mostly
That's crazy.
Academic and business research. And this model is actually from a peer-reviewed journal, and this has been heavily researched.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what it says is that business performance needs 3 components, all performing to an adequate level. They are, number 1 is, you've already mentioned, business culture.
Mm-hmm.
And the business culture. We've got another model, courtesy of an affiliate organization that you and we just met with last week. The second component is what's referred to as business resilience. Now, I headed up a team that was responsible for business continuity.
Mm-hmm.
Business continuity is part of business resilience, but it is not all of it. There's actually more.
Yeah.
And then the third dimension is personal resilience,
which we've been talking about ad nauseum for the last few months.
and
here's where it comes in.
And look, oh wow, we're finally making sense. Our focus on personal resilience wasn't an accident, and our passion for personal resilience was actually towards business performance. But now we're finally, maybe a little bit late, but we're revealing the big piece. What the background research really shows is that these things are interconnected. That was actually the purpose of the research study, was to explore, well, do resilient leaders impact a resilient business, or is it the other way around, or do they impact each other? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to help us take a few minutes to work through exactly what this is all about, and give our listeners a chance to learn more, and then we'll hopefully we're going to do more episodes on each one of these.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I think the first place I'll start, because it's got a nice model, is this idea of business culture.
Mm-hmm.
The organization that you and I are affiliated with, called Human Synergistics Canada, they are part of a bigger organization called Human Synergistics Worldwide. And many decades ago, they came up with this business model called the Organization Culture Inventory.
Hmm.
And they look at business culture as having three parts. The first part is what we would call passive defensive. That's the green zone. And passive defensive is bureaucratic. Nobody's responsible for anything. It's
Hmm.
ew. It's not. I mean, a little bit of it is normal. A lot of it is a place most people don't want to work.
Yeah. It's the one I always misname and call passive aggressive.
Right. And that is an actual term, but it's not
Sure.
the way they've built the model. Passive
True.
defensive, people are being passive to protect.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Whereas passive aggressive is I'm being aggressive by,
Yeah.
fine, it's fine. No,
Uh-huh.
that's not it. The second aspect of culture they describe as aggressive defensive. This is where power and position and competition and
Infighting.
argumentative just cause.
Yeah.
And the surprising one is being perfectionistic, which a lot of people would think is a good thing, but in their model, perfection for the sake of perfection, not because it's good for the customer or anybody else.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you basically freeze yourself in place until you're absolutely sure that what you're about to do is going to work.
right. And it's very dysfunctional when the people in charge of perfection can overrule basically an entire company. That's
Yeah.
not right.
Yep.
And then the last domain, and the one everybody wants lots of, is the constructive. And the constructive side of the house is really about great relationships. It's about chasing excellence because it's a good thing to do. It's about guiding your own development, and it's about having really good trusted leaders, and leaders having good trusted staff.
Which sounds a lot like the organization we were initially a part of when things were going well.
When things were
Ding,
going
ding.
well. And the thing that's really cool about the human synergistics model is that, again, coming out of research that I did just this past summer, a University of Calgary Business School published a paper about models of business culture, and they had 140 something that they documented from around the world, and there was hardly any of them that had an associated measurement tool. Human Synergistics has one, but not only do they have one, quite personally and through my experience, they have the best one.
Well, it works. That's
Well,
why it's the best one.
it works, and best of all, it has been researched published in peer-reviewed papers, not marketing materials. Such and such a consulting house says our model shows it's great.
Mm-hmm.
That may be true. What Human Synergistics has done is they've actually let it go out into the world of academia and said, hey, what do you think? And people have come back and said, bam, this thing is awesome. And
Yeah.
it is. So that's part number one of the big model, is the organization culture model.
Yep.
The other piece I would want to bring to that, and bring it back to our story about MDS, is really that at MDS, it was mostly constructive until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And the thing, and I know this because I was working in a group responsible in part for the merger, the big merger that we did,
Yeah.
was they basically acquired a company, and the culture of that company was the beginning of the downfall because their culture was completely incompatible.
Which super interesting, because I think from a real life perspective, everyone can think of a time, and it's almost this palpable essence in the air where the energy shifts. And part of the reason why we always encourage people to be careful with their M&A is because it's more than just the money.
Yeah.
And I have been a part of at least 3 different organizations where you can literally trace back to a merger and acquisition as the downfall to either an entire division, group, team, project, or company.
Yeah.
All
and
three.
So let's dive more into that one when we go deep into that culture tool, because I think that your point is perfect, and we can really go after that to make our case, I think.
Well, and I think this is the thing. In layman's terms, why should you care about your culture?
Yeah.
Because it can literally destroy your business.
Absolutely.
And there's a list of companies on and on and on where this has happened. You're not
So,
special.
so the second part of this model is around business resilience. As I said earlier, business continuity and all things around crisis preparedness and the robustness of your systems, that's what most people take to be business resilience.
Yeah.
And it is. There's so much more, though, that makes for business resilience. And according to the research literature that we found, most of it points to alignment, cohesion, and that you have people pointed in the right direction. So there's things like purpose, values, behaviors, which have an overlap with culture, but if we're not aligned, that's going to rip us apart. The second part is really around goals and decision making, because if you're not doing that correctly, then that's going to rip you apart too. And no matter how robust your IT systems are and how good your business or your disruption preparedness is, if you're not aligned as a business, it's going to pull you down.
Absolutely.
And then the last part of this is really about change and adaptability. The extent to which people understand the way your business works, that you don't have a lot of secrets and closed doors. Like it's a very open business, that people have the data and they're aware of what's going on within the business and outside the business. And then lastly, and this goes back to business continuity, is that businesses actually try to make their business more resilient on purpose.
Absolutely. And then, of course, as we've been talking about, like I said, for the last few months, in order to get your entire business to be more resilient, it comes down to personal resilience.
Right. And that's
the last part. It matters as an individual.
Absolutely. So just before we go over to personal resilience, the business resilience, all of that stuff about alignment and cohesion and change adaptability, there are all kinds of widely recognized survey tools to confirm just that.
Yep.
I've used ones that have been published by Harvard, over a decade ago, because they're just standard tools that are widely used. You don't need to use them very often, but you do need to have data. And so that kind of stuff, there are measurement tools available. And then once you've measured them, of course, you can take steps to
do something about it. That's usually the missing step.
Exactly.
Great. You measured it. Now what?
Which brings us back to personal resilience. And so we've also landed on another model. This one is around personal resilience, and it's really quite a compelling thing. A number of times this week alone, I've been talking about the difference between resilience and grit.
Yep.
Grit is written about by Angela Duckworth. She has such a wonderful TED Talk about it. Yep. But grit is only a piece. That ability to pick yourself up and keep on going, that's what people equate with resilience.
Yes.
But it's just one part.
Yes.
The rest of it is about being resourceful, about having a good relationship with your own emotions and being able to manage them, about knowing your strengths, about compassion, about being self-directing as opposed to sitting around waiting for someone to tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming back, oh, look, here it is again. Decision making.
Yep. Look at that.
Look at that. And so here again, on all of this stuff, you can do a measurement, which actually leads me to something I think that you and I have for our viewers.
Yes, we actually have. If you go to our website, we will dive deeper into this in another episode, because I think it's important to go a little bit deeper on this. But if you're curious about where you currently fit in terms of personal resilience, we do have a quiz available at the gystmethod.ca. And you can go on there and actually just do a quick thumbnail check of how you get scale in terms of personal resilience. Because I think it's important to get, feedback, even feedback as light as this, because we may feel or think or suspect that we're going to be really resilient and are resilient. We can handle the things that come our way. But as we've discussed, burnout, overwhelm, anxiety is prevalent right now. It's everywhere. It's rampant. So it's important to get that check so that you can do something about it.
Well, and yet again, as we keep stressing in this episode and always will, This assessment is actually a peer-reviewed academic assessment for personal resilience. This is not, Bob's or Nicole's resilience test. This actually comes out of research literature by psychologists, and we're putting it out there, giving full credit to the people who invented it, but it's a real deal.
Yeah, go use it, check it out, even for nothing else than the I wonder what I am at the moment.
Yeah.
Purpose.
This model of personal resilience, about business resilience, and about culture.
Mm-hmm.
What we saw happen at MDS was at least my experience was, I walked in the door, I saw lots of resilient people, lots of focus on emotional well-being and emotional awareness, like all of the things that are in that model, I saw evidence of.
Yep.
The business resilience, wow, did they have alignment and did they know where they were going, and the culture was strong. And then an acquisition was made. Part of that acquisition caused misalignment on goals. Part of that acquisition led to new ideas, and the company got its fingers into many, many, many too many pies all at once.
Yeah.
Like they actually had a capital corporation, a venture capital business, as part of their other business, along with a pharma business, a nuclear reactor that they built that never worked.
Diagnostics.
Yeah. They had a diagnostics business. Oh, let's go to the States. We can make it and then all of a sudden they did too much, too fast on too many fronts.
Shiny opportunity syndrome. We have covered it. In fact, if you haven't seen that episode, I'll link it.
And a multi-billion-dollar company, and something that made a real difference across Canada.
Globally. This was a global organization. Again,
yeah.
And what's so interesting is they actually were able to create this healthy, vibrant culture across the globe. Like when I was doing work in Toronto, it was the same as when I was doing work in Paris. It was the same when you were dealing with the States. They managed to do this globally, and then the whole thing tumbled down, and it's sad.
It's sad, and I firmly believe that if these measurement tools that we're talking about were used instead of because I was part of the team, the culture survey tool that they were using, it was a culture survey tool, but it wasn't associated with a model per se.
Yeah.
And I can remember sitting down with the CEO, and he and I were having a debate about what the data said and what to do about the data. And because it wasn't associated with a validated model, the data wasn't, to my understanding, it was never used in a way that it could have been.
Yeah, and it's hard to make decisions like that.
Yep. So
Alrighty.
Let's dive more into each of these, and hopefully our viewers are going to get a much better handle on how this stuff really, really can make a difference.
Absolutely. So for those of you watching us online, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and please leave us a comment. I would love to hear if you've been part of an organization that was incredible, you're still friends with people, you still keep in contact, but somewhere along the lines, things got derailed. I would love to hear about your experience for that. And just as a reminder, don't forget to go over to gystmethod.ca and take the personal resilience quiz. Until next time. Thanks, guys.